Welcome into Player Profiler News Primetime. I'm your host, Grindberg, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, the man with the fantasy football knowledge, Coach Retzlaff. We're live tonight, January 13th, and we got a jam-packed show for you. We'll be firing off some rapid-fire takes, trading news, back and forth, and we're going to be breaking down everything from some potential breakouts and some shakeups that's happening around the league, and we're going to go over the last couple of games that happened this weekend. So grab your drink, sit back, and let's get into it, Jer. The Texans stun the Chargers with a defensive dominance, 32-12 in a wild card win. What a game, Jeremiah. I wasn't expecting that. I thought the Chargers would come out and look a lot better than they did for fantasy purposes. People playing DFS and stuff like that. If you play Ladd McConkey, you were pretty happy. But other than that, things did not look good for the Chargers. And, it was showing their rookieism. Maybe the Chargers are being Chargers like they have in the past. They got to get over that hump. What is your breakdown on that game, my man?
Hey, it's like that old adage, and good to see you, Mike, how the Chargers, every single game is the same. I believe it's Patrick Doherty who always tweets that, and it really has continued on. There's that meme out there with, what's his face? Phillip Rivers. And he's in the background, and Justin Herbert is just there suffering. It's just a tough scene overall. Here's a recap. The Texans defense, they win the day. 24 points on FanDuel for DFS if you started them. I had one contest. I'm very ecstatic. I'm over the moon. You certainly were happy if you slotted the Texans in your defensive spot for playoff contests, right? So just a brutal run out for the Chargers, as you mentioned, Mike. Justin Herbert can't beat the allegations so far. He's now 0-2 in the playoffs across 5 seasons. So it's not just the 2 playoff losses, it's also the cumulative 5 years of not making the playoffs even more. Peyton Manning took a long time to get his first win early in his career, but that is Peyton Manning. Are we putting Justin Herbert with Peyton Manning? I don't think so. This is a game, fair or not, where the quarterback gets the extra glory and the blame extra, with neither quite being deserved. So it's always a magnitude too much or too little. And when quarterbacks make $50 to $60 million a year, these contracts, they're cashing in so good. So absolutely, Justin Herbert is going to hear about it. In fantasy football, we don't care so much, but through the lens of debating who is the best, these games certainly come up. Herbert was 14 of 32, passed for 242 yards and a touchdown to 4 interceptions. So 1 touchdown to 4 interception ratio is awful. On the other side, CJ Stroud, 22 of 33 for 282 yards and a touchdown with just 1 interception. So Stroud didn't necessarily play excellent. He just protected the football while Justin Herbert did not. Stroud didn't have to win the game so much as just take care of the ball. Speaking of taking care of the ball, giving it to Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon came away with 16.9 fantasy points, 25 carries, 106 yards rushing, and a touchdown. That helped my parlay hit. It was Ladd 75.5 yards, Ladd touchdown, and Joe Mixon touchdown. It got me a good hit. It's just funny how it happened, though, because there was a long touchdown pass to McConkey, and Joe Mixon did it in dramatic fashion late in the game. 1 catch for 13 yards, which ended up in a fumbled loss for Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon was a good to decent DFS play and returned good value in your playoff leagues. The stars of the day, though, were Ladd McConkey and Nico Collins. A little foreshadowing to next week's Combat Zone that we have planned for all of you. Ladd McConkey set a playoff record for receiving yards with 197, 9 catches on 14 targets, and a touchdown. The lone touchdown pass Herbert had was to Ladd McConkey. This was good for 34.7 fantasy points. In the offseason, we'll see the Chargers be paired in the draft with a wide receiver, and we also may see the Chargers chase receivers in free agency. Do not let additions distract or dissuade you from clicking the draft button at ADP in 2025 for Ladd McConkey. I imagine Ladd will be at the 1-2 turn safely in round 2. And Ladd overall on the week so far, He's the wide receiver one. I know it's just the playoffs, but again, if you're playing these playoff contests, if you're playing an underdog on Fast Draft, you are ecstatic and over the moon if you have Lab McConkey. Nico Collins gets to play another week, though. Nico had 7 catches on 8 targets for 122 yards and a touchdown. Nico Collins has had an up and down season through no fault of his own. Recall, Nico's value was sky high prior to his hamstring injury. Between Ladd and Nico, they'll both be in contention to be anchor players in redraft and in best ball in 2025. Good luck getting them in Dynasty. Duds for the game. J.K. Dobbins, 9 carries for 26 yards. What a great comeback story for him that Dobbins was this year. You have to imagine part of why the ground game couldn't get going. The Chargers tried to press the passing game. Of course, if it wasn't Lab McConkey, it was Justin Herbert throwing to the other team. Dalton Schultz for the Texans, 2 for 23. And Deontay Johnson, 1 target and a catch for 12 yards. Deontay is down bad. If he couldn't get saved here with the Houston Texans, I'm really not sure what the solution is going to be for Deontay Johnson recovering. So not the most competitive game, but we got some excellent fireworks in the form of Lab McConkey and Nico Collins, 2 young wide receivers who are ascending higher in Dynasty, will be drafted very high in drafts on Underdog in 2025. Mike, what do you make of that game?
Yeah, it was just like I said in the intro there. It was a little bit of surprise as far as how the game, I thought it was just going to be a tighter game. I honestly thought the Chargers were going to win that game. So it was a surprise to me. But that's just how playoff football is sometimes. And the home team has that advantage, and they know how to prepare, I guess, these teams. And look what happened. Good game. Now, I'm going to talk about the other game that happened on Saturday, and that's the Ravens, who dominated the Steelers in that clash. It was a masterful performance in their 28-14 victory for the Ravens over the Steelers. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry leading the charge. Jackson playing at an MVP level with both his efficient and dangerous. He completed 16 of 21, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns, while adding 81 yards on the ground on 15 carries. His ability to execute plays with both his arm and legs kept the Steelers defense guessing all night. Jackson's quick decision-making and versatility, it allowed the Ravens to control the game from start to finish, including 3 touchdown drives of 90 or more yards. Just a great performance. And, it's kind of hard not to put him in, good contention here for the Super Bowl. Derrick Henry was equally outstanding, rushing for 186 yards, 2 touchdowns. His 44-yard touchdown run in the third quarter was a thing of beauty as he bulldozed through defenders and showcased his signature power and speed. Henry's relentless running style, it wore down the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. His physicality on full display, particularly in a game where the yards mattered. We know these tight divisional games, and you add the playoff implications, and the Ravens look like a team that is honed in, ready to make a run here, and they're going to have a tough one coming up this week against the Bills in Buffalo. It looked great. It's going to be a matchup that I'm really looking forward to seeing. But on the other side of the ball there, we got to talk a little about the Steelers here and their offense. And despite a few flashes of potential, and they just continued to struggle in face of Baltimore's superior play. Russell Wilson, he threw for 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, but his effort, well, it wasn't enough to overcome, Pittsburgh's ongoing issues. George Pickens, one of the team's most talented playmakers, had a quiet game, 4 catches. He did have that 36-yard touchdown. His comments in recent weeks about the offense's growth have reflected his dissatisfaction about the current situation, and his frustration, it seems to be boiling over into the game. And with both Wilson and Fields set to become free agents at the end of the season, the Steelers quarterback situation, it's a clouded one. The team will need to address its instability at the position, especially if it hopes to rebuild and compete for playoffs in the future. And this game, this situation, it just doesn't look like the normal Mike Tomlin kind of Pittsburgh Steelers. It just, they look really dysfunctional at this stage, Jeremiah, but we really got to have a lot of faith here in this Ravens situation, and what are your thoughts on them? Do they have a fighting shot against the Bills? Do you have them as the favorite in this one?
Well, we've talked, Mike. You and I were battling contentiously between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. It's very much the Spider-Man meme, and it's going to be a very tight game. Right now, I believe it is a pick'em with a slight lean to the Baltimore Ravens. The game will be in Buffalo. One thing that I heard that was very insightful was the fact that, and it sounds very simple, right? Derrick Henry is now with the Ravens. Lamar Jackson has somebody who can bruise and beat up in the colder weather in an environment like Kansas City, in an environment like Buffalo, which will be the scene and setting this week coming up. So it's just this collision course. Of course, the MVP votes have already happened, but to me, RPO to death, the Buffalo Bills. You're the triple threat. You're Lamar Jackson. You can beat them with Derrick Henry, and you have all those options. Zay Flowers likely out, so there is going to have to be some creativity with Isaiah Likely, with Rashad Bateman, those secondary, tertiary options. Mark Andrews, of course, can be the 1A in this offense. I still love it for the Ravens to march down. Every drive should be able to end in some form of a score. That's got to be the mentality that they take. It's not going to be a friendly environment. You could say the very same thing on the opposite end for the Buffalo Bills. But funny enough, I've got a little bit of the recap on the Bills. It's a perfect natural segue, Mike. The Bills and Broncos, the recap here. The Bills take down the Broncos 31-7. Bo Nix started off hot with a touchdown pass to his Oregon teammate, Troy Franklin. That was all the Broncos got, as it was 31 unanswered points by the Bills. Bills fans have had so much heartbreak, so that opening touchdown drive had some Bills fans on tilt. I've got a good contingent of my Irish side family who are big time Bills fans. Shout out to my Uncle Jerry. He's in his early 80s. I would love for him to see the Bills win a Super Bowl in his lifetime. It was easy, though, going the rest of the way, competitive up to the half when it was 10-7. So it was still a close game. Josh Allen, an efficient 20 of 26 passing, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 8 rushes for 46 yards. It only seemed quiet on the ground because you expect Josh Allen to just rush one in, gallivant into the end zone, and do the flick of the wrist with the football. A cool 25.48 fantasy points performance. That's in 4-point passing touchdowns. Mike, you and I debate heartily Allen and Lamar last week on our combat zone. We don't have to debate anymore, as the Bills and the Ravens will get to play in Buffalo next week. We're used to, though, seeing 5 and 6 touchdown output. So it's kind of funny that it wasn't just a ceiling lid lifting game for Josh Allen. Maybe we get that next week against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Now, Bo Nix, 13 of 22, 144 yards passing. He had that 1 touchdown, which on the first drive of the game, you're feeling over the moon, like the Broncos might be able to trade blows with the Bills. Bo had 4 carries, 43 rushing yards. Bo Nix, QB7 on the season. I see him as an assignment quarterback. He fits perfect in Sean Payton's offense. Bo thrives off of structure. And shy of the running backs, they have a decent cast of weapons. Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, Devon Vele has been a nice find. The Broncos, though, they need a bona fide tight end. You've got Tyler Warren, who will probably be gone. But then there's also Colston Loveland and Harold Fannin Jr. out there. You got to love that. I'll speak bearish on the Broncos running backs as well. But the lead on the day was Javonte Williams. 7 carries, 29 yards. A tough scene entirely. And I really expect the Broncos to find a running back in the draft, round 2 or 3. For the Bills, Josh Allen, he fed James Cook plenty. Cook steadily carried 23 times, 120 yards, and a touchdown. Oddly enough, 0 targets in the passing game. I had the over 12.5 yards receiving on Cook, so I was definitely sad there. Ty Johnson, though, mixed in 9 rushes for 44 yards. Johnson had an incredible catch in the back of the end zone. He was sliding. He caught the ball. Then his feet hit out of bounds. It went under review, and the call stood. Ray Davis suffered a concussion, so expect an expanded role for Johnson next week versus Baltimore. Josh Allen, very complimentary of Ty Johnson in the passing game. If Josh Allen is speaking your name positively, that's going to be maybe a key plug in DFS lineups, or maybe some of those prop bets for next week versus the Ravens. Curtis Samuel, there's a name, right? 55-yard touchdown reception, 3 of 3 for 68 yards. Samuel, he's a player we've forgotten about, but a lot of why we wonder how we miss out on some players is the fact that we're in on players who bust. So if you click this year, Curtis Samuel, you missed out on other viable players at ADP. So good thing to see Samuel still has it, but it kind of reminded me of Miles Sanders in week 18. You're like, wait, this guy can hoop, he can ball, given an opportunity, but week over week, it doesn't end up happening. It just goes to show you how good the talent is in the NFL. Some guys can make it happen every week. Others, it's more of a chore, right? Khalil Shakir, a cool 6 for 61. Shakir is the best bet for PPR goodness in this Bills offense. As I'm naming these players, though, on the Bills, it definitely gives credence to the MVP argument. Mike, I know I took Lamar last week. You took Josh Allen. But take a look. Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, they combined for 5 total catches, 85 yards. That's what you would have wanted out of Dalton Kincaid. Amari Cooper, 2 passes, 8 yards. Cooper will be a do-not-draft player in 2025. How can you? Keon Coleman, only 1 catch. So the Bills, they look like they got worked in the Xavier Worthy trade with the Chiefs. Of course, they came away with their guy, Keon Coleman. It's not looking so good right now. 2 things that can bite the Bills in the playoffs. We talk about weaknesses showing bigger in the playoffs. The Bills' poor rush defense. Here comes Lamar, Derrick Henry. And 2, what I just talked about, not having serious weapons can be a detriment. So the show goes on, though, and the Bills remain a serious Super Bowl contender. Mike, what's your take on the Bills and the Ravens next week? What's your early read?
My early read right now is it's going to be just a bloodbath. Honestly, it's just whoever's going to have the ball last, and turnovers are going to be huge here. I'm thinking, if I were to pick one right now, I'm going to go with the Bills because they're at home and they're going to get the 3 points. So that's just my gut. And I'm going to go with Josh Allen, who's been there a couple times. I think, this might be his year to get there. If there is going to be a year, he's built to take his team on his shoulders, and they're going to have to play out. And we're going to see what happens because the Ravens, like I mentioned, they're playing lights out. So it'll be great. But Jared, hold on here. The Podfather is in my ear. He says we haven't mentioned the Fast Draft app yet, and we better get on it because it is an awesome promo. So let's hear all about it.
Hey, I want to thank. Oh, incredible news about Fast Draft. Fast Draft DFS is live. It's called the Flex 6 Frenzy. You just draft 6 guys, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends for the Sunday slate. You like Jahmyr Gibbs? You like Jackson Smith and Jigba? You like Tyrone Tracy? Draft him, draft him, draft him. And the beauty is you can just order 5 teams, submit your rankings, and Fast Draft will email you the results. We awarded $1,000 in prizes our first week, and we're just going up from there. Soon there's going to be a select 6. No drafting at all. You just pick any 6 guys. Our DFS mantra, just say no to salaries on Fast Draft. Don't forget there's free tools on Fast Draft too. You want to get ready for startup season? We've created the best Dynasty mock draft experience there is. And if you want to play in these DFS contests, and our best ball contest for 2025 coming very soon too, just use promo code PODFATHER when you deposit and you get a free draft. It's that easy. And you're like, oh, I already have Fast Draft. Great. Refer a friend. Have them put your username in as the promo code, and then you and your friend will both get an instant deposit match up to $25. We got DFS. We got Dynasty Mocks. We got Best Ball. It's all there for you on fastdraft.app. Check it out. And the promo code is PODFATHER.
Hey, go and get the Fast Draft app. Get playing. And the cool thing is you have that entry point of people who are developing in first frontier, right? There's so many opportunities to win these contests as this platform is growing. Go out there and play some Fast Draft. Mike, teams that are going on, teams that are staying home or going out to Cabo on vacation. Tell us about the Packers. Tell us about the Eagles.
Well, the Eagles secured a playoff win 22-10 over the Packers. Saquon Barkley continuing his dominant season, ran the ball 25 times, 119 yards, marking his 11th game this season with over 100 rushing yards. Though he wasn't involved much in the passing game, just 2 receptions for 4 yards. His ground game was pivotal in controlling the tempo of the game. Barkley's ability to churn out tough yards helped extend drives and kept the Packers defense on his heels. As the Eagles look ahead at the divisional round, Barkley will remain the centerpiece of their offense, as his fantasy value will remain high headed into the next matchup. Quarterback Jalen Hurts also showed his dual threat capabilities, hidden return from his concussion protocol, completed 13 of 21 for 131 and 2 touchdowns, a solid performance, and a decent passer rating, 111. He also added 36 rushing yards on 6 attempts. He is the key around the Eagles game, and his efficiency and ability to make plays in the air and on the ground make him a crucial fantasy asset, especially as the Eagles advance in the playoffs. Hurts' highlight came in the third quarter when he connected with Dallas Goedert for that 24-yard touchdown. Expect Hurts to continue being a top fantasy quarterback as long as he can stay healthy. Excuse me. On the receiving end, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith both had quiet games. A.J. Brown just recording 1 catch for 10 yards. However, his impact was felt in other ways, particularly downfield blocking, where he played a significant role. But, we're talking about fantasy football here, and that doesn't help managers when they are playing him in a DFS lineup. But, it's the playoffs here, folks, and all that matters is the win, and the Eagles are there, and they made that game look easy against the Packers. And meanwhile, on the other side of the ball, Jordan Love had a rough day, completing 20 of 33 for 212 yards, throwing 3 interceptions, severely limiting his fantasy output. Love's poor decision-making cost the Packers, especially with the offense already struggling to execute. His 3 turnovers, including a late pick that sealed the game, capped off a disappointing performance, and a year that was marked with some disappointment in reality, when people had him as a breakout candidate building off his 2023. Just didn't end up panning out. They couldn't find a prolific wide receiver in that lineup, and maybe they condense that offense moving forward. They may have to rely on that. Maybe Jordan Love is having a hard time finding a receiver to get those deep connections with, and they might have to find that. So for fantasy gamers, we will want to temper our expectations of Jordan Love headed into 2025. He will be a fringe starter at best, with his struggles, and the Packers' offensive woes were compounded, and they just couldn't break free from the Eagles' defense. And story of their year, essentially. They had a skid of losing, games here at the end of the year, and not great news. But if you notice here, folks, we've rebranded our channel here. We are now Player Profiler Now, and be sure to hit that subscribe button. We are about 140 shy of our 1,000 benchmark that we're trying to hit in the next month here. So make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, folks. Got a lot of stuff cooking up here this off season, and not only do you want to follow our YouTube channel, but get on the website, follow the news links, because we got about 5-6 articles coming out every day, and we are just going to be updating that daily, and we're going to get the latest and brightest news out there. So Jeremiah, hit that like and subscribe. Now let's move on to the game that was had everybody talking yesterday, and that was the Commanders, and their new era is shining bright. Daniels leads Washington to their first playoff win in 18 years. Do you want to tell us all about it?
Absolutely. What a game. The magic run for the Commanders continues on a last-second field goal off the post and in for Zane Gonzalez. Jayden Daniels and the Commanders survive and advance past the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Commanders come away with a 23-20 victory. It was slated to be a 50.5-point total game. Jayden Daniels and Baker Mayfield each had 2 touchdown passes. Daniels added 36 yards on the ground. Baker 7 for 23. Baker Mayfield always running hard. I love the way he runs, just tough. Both had a clean sheet protecting the ball in the air with 0 interceptions. However, Baker Mayfield did lose a fumble. Baker connected with Mike Evans and Bucky Irving for touchdowns. A lot was made of the Evans-Lattimore matchup. Mike Evans cooked 7 catches, 92 yards, and a touchdown. I contend that Mike Evans is a player that you want in 2025. He's worth buying in Dynasty. Usually in the offseason, you can buy aging older receivers at a discount. Of course, when you're trying to buy them prior to a playoff run, the price is always going to be steep, but you're trying to trade a championship for a player and a pick. Usually that works out for you, or it's at least worth the risk, right? Jalen McMillan goes 2 for 41 on 4 targets. McMillan's growth, though, has been fun to see. He'll easily be a value pick in drafts in 2025. Of course, there's really few secrets in fantasy football, so people will be wanting to jump in and inflate his price. The Buccaneers have shown they are an offense with pieces that you want. They're a good team and a good offense, a stable quarterback who's fearless yet calculating. Really not reckless is Baker Mayfield. You have excellent weather at home, the NFC South opponents, which favor shootout schedules. You're getting great games. Shy of having to travel to London, Atlanta, and New Orleans every single year in the domes. And then, of course, Carolina Panthers, it's beautiful weather in North Carolina most year round, especially for football season. The Commanders didn't get much on the ground, though. Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson Jr., a combination of 18 carries, 43 yards. Terry McLaurin led the day, 7 catches, 89 yards, and a touchdown on 10 targets. It has been a magic season for Terry McLaurin. He's long suffered through bad quarterback play. I'm so happy for him. Terry was one of our better calls in tandem with Jayden Daniels. So, Mike, I know you and I were both in on Terry McLaurin and Jayden Daniels. So very satisfying to see them hit. And especially when we make the call of Terry and Jayden, it's very much an all-in for both of them. Chances are one hits, the other hits, one doesn't, the other doesn't. So it feels great, like a home run, just double on that. Diami Brown, 5 passes, 89 yards, and a touchdown. The Commanders need to find a second wide receiver opposite of Terry McLaurin. I know Zacchaeus has been a player who has popped to some, but this is a weakness that tends to show itself in the playoffs. As I was speaking to some of the Bills' weaknesses that are out there, this is a weakness that is out there for the Washington Commanders. The Commanders move on. They draw the Lethal Lions. The Cinderella story could be ending here soon. I have a little blurb on Player Profiler now, where for our news desk, we're talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. QB4 on the season for Baker Mayfield. Bucky Irving, the RB13. Consider that it wasn't a linear growth for Bucky Irving. He had to battle some with Rachaad White. So Bucky Irving in Dynasty is soaring. Mike Evans get his 11th 1,000-yard receiving season. Jalen McMillan is on the rise. He filled in greatly after Chris Godwin got hurt. Cade Otton, 6 tight end 1 games. The future is very bright in Tampa Bay, and this will be an offense that you will want to continue to invest in. And even to Mike Evans' point, until Mike Evans is done playing, I'm going to want to keep playing him week by week basis. Let's say it's week 4 next week, 2025 season. You're going to want to roll out Mike Evans. All right, he's just clicking so well, and I don't see any reason for it to stop. Of course, primes end, careers end, but so long as Mike Evans is lacing them up, I'm very confident in Mike Evans. So Mike, what do you think? Yes, I'm saying Mike so much. What do you think of this Commanders and Bucks game? What's your takeout?
Well, I mean, it was a great game back and forth. I think the line showed it, like it was going to be a game that, probably the last possession was going to happen, and it ended up being like that. And, no shame on the Bucks. They had a great season, and the Commanders is a team that, really going to have a good measuring stick this weekend against the Detroit Lions. It'll be really interesting to see how Jayden Daniels handles the pressure, and it'll be an awesome game, and we'll see what happens here. Let's move on there, bud.
Hey, so we're bullish, we're bearish. We got our takeaways. We've got the people who are packing it up, and then the people who are advancing. Let's go now into bullish, bearish, who we are packing our bags for, and who we're packing our bags to ship away.
0-1. Woo!
All right, so I'm going to be bearish this week. It's always fun being bullish. Of course, you're optimist. You've got the green. There's that dopamine hit, but sometimes you got to short the market. You've got to be bearish. I think this one's going to be easy and agreeable for a lot of people. The Broncos running backs. I'm bearish on the Broncos running backs as it sits now. The Broncos have had a committee all year with Sean Payton. We're always wondering when he'll pull another Alvin Kamara under his sleeve. The fact is, it just isn't going to happen. The next Alvin Kamara plays in Detroit and is a big-time prospect, or was a big-time prospect, in Jahmyr Gibbs. Tyler Bidet, Blake Watson, they can be the waiver wire pickup you hope to outsmart your entire league, but they are just that. They're churn and burn. They'd have been selected by other teams if they were valuable in the NFL. The survival rate of UDFAs, day 3 running backs, isn't as high as some might think. Just look at Kamani Vidal, Dylan Laube. People were so high on them, and there's a fade. People just don't want to miss out, so sometimes they'll be overly bullish on these late round players because you don't want to miss. And of course, we like to be the smartest person in the room. On the day, though, Bo Nix led the team in rushing versus the Bills with 43 yards. That is a problem. Not saying that your quarterback shouldn't be a better rusher if they are, but that really is a problem. Javonte went 7 for 29 yards. He had 2 receptions for 14. Javante's over-under rushing line was set at 12.5. I took the over on a straight bet, but let's just take that for what it is, a 12.5-yard line. Javonte was the RB30 on the season. Oddly, Javonte was 5th in targets with 70, 6th in RB receptions with 52. But in the rushing game, Javonte was 33rd in carries, 37th in rushing yards. Javonte is 24 years old. He's never returned to his pre-injury state, that electric pre-injury state that we remember him being bullish for. We never got rookie Javonte Williams to have the job to himself due to Melvin Gordon being in the picture. Javonte's 4-year rookie contract is up, and he'll be a free agent in 2025. The Broncos, with a cacophony of backs, ultimately have no running back of the future on their roster. Audric Estime can be a nice piece, but the Broncos are in need of a big-time running back. Jaleel McLaughlin can flash speed. Sometimes on a given play, he'll look like Devon Achane. Problem is, Jaleel can't handle the Achane volume. I would love to see somebody like Omarion Hampton or Caleb Johnson, in Denver. Omarion Hampton, 0 fumbles in his career at UNC. You think Sean Payton would like that? While I'm bearish on the Denver backfield, I am bullish on the future, as I do expect round 2, round 3, the Broncos to really take a serious approach at the running back position. Now, Mike, can you give us something more upbeat, more bullish? What do you got on Ladd McConkey?
Lad. Dad's for Lad, like we always say. And, his rookie season with the Chargers, nothing short of but exceptional. Quickly became the key piece of their offense. 15 games, he recorded 77 receptions, 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, proving himself as a consistent and reliable target. McConkey's outstanding yards per route run, sitting at 2.53 and a 0.17 first downs per route run, highlight his ability to generate efficient, productive plays, making him a standout among the rookies. Despite battling knee and shoulder injuries, he broke Keenan Allen's rookie reception record and yards, and a 9-game streak of 50-plus receiving yards further solidifies his place among the league's most promising young talent. With a future that looks even brighter in year 2, McConkey is poised to take a major leap, especially considering the ability to thrive in tough matchups. Fantasy gamers who took a chance on him are reaping the rewards, and his development alongside Justin Herbert, paired with his offseason growth, has McConkey on track to be one of the league's next top receivers. What makes him even more bullish on him, moving forward is his undeniable growth, and it showed throughout this season, and especially in that postseason game. Despite the Chargers' disappointing playoff loss against the Texans, McConkey was a shining star. He racked up 197 yards, including that incredible 86-yard touchdown. The performance solidifies his status as, one of the Chargers' top weapons and proved that McConkey is just not a flash in the pan rookie. 77 receptions, 1,000 yards this year. His yards per route run, elite. That 9-game streak, plus 7 touchdowns. He proved that he could be a red zone threat. So his impressive rookie season solidified his place as a fantasy football star in the making. His combination of efficiency, big playability, and consistent production make him a lock as a top 15 fantasy wide receiver moving forward, even if the Chargers add a number 1 wide receiver that could play downfield. Yep. McConkey's skill set and rapport with Justin Herbert ensures his place in the offense. Simply put, McConkey is the kind of receiver who makes you say, if you're not on the Lad McConkey train, you're already behind the curve. So let's go, Lad McConkey, man. I love his situation, and it's only going to get better.
Hey, we got a comment from our beloved Chev. Lad over Garrett Wilson, and I'll just say, even if your talent, you don't even have to have the talent evaluation of Lad over Garrett Wilson. What if you just take a look at the situation? It is airtight. Lad McConkey is a slam dunk. It from a safety element and balling and hooping out. With Garrett Wilson, it's more of a what if, because it's unknown without Aaron Rodgers or whoever the next quarterback is going to be. The next team destination, if it's out there that Garrett Wilson goes to another team, would remain to be seen. It'd be kind of funny if, ironically, Garrett Wilson got traded somehow to the Chargers, and then we just had this predicament take place. But yeah, Lad over Garrett Wilson, I think right now, moment in time, is not overreactionary. I like that take. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I do too. I'm a huge Lad fan. I love his situation. He's connected with a quarterback. We have no idea what the Jet situation is. And, Garrett Wilson might not be a Jet next year either. So there's a lot of variables here. And I'm just going to go with what I see. And I see Lad McConkey having a prolific rookie season. And I saw a stat today. I'm not sure who it was from. I think Jax had retweeted it on Twitter. I'm not sure who to give props to, but it was a list of rookies in the last 5 years that had the best yards per route run, and McConkey was sitting at 7. Guys ahead of him like Brian Thomas Jr. this year, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua, so AJ Brown, so like some very good company there, and Lad McConkey was right up there. So yeah, buy into this kid. He's a great separator. He's as tough as nails, and he's that type of receiver that you just want to have on your team. So I love that situation he's in. Jeremiah, let's get into the Monday night preview. The game's kind of started up here, but let's break it down, my man. Coaches. All
right, so the game is getting underway. Sam Darnold, the Vikings, will either make a lot of money tonight or lose a lot of money. So that's very captivating. If you want to watch volatile trading on the stock market, you can watch volatile contract value tonight, one way or the other. QB9 on the season for fantasy, 5th in explosive rating that we have at Player Profiler here with a score of 113.4. Darnold is 5th in passing touchdowns with 35 on the season, 6th in pressure throws, but 5th in danger plays and 5th in interceptable passes with 20. So Sam Darnold is always hovering that line of blowing up in the stat sheet, good or bad, volatile, right? It has been mostly good in 2024, but due to past reputation, Darnold won't beat the allegations and he goes on a deep playoff run. Darnold was 5th in passing yards in 2024 with 43-19, 11th in money throws with 13. The Vikings have 4 more wins than the Rams and need to show it tonight. They are playing in Arizona, of course, the relocation from the devastation of the fires in LA. Prayers out to everybody there affected. Cam Akers, Aaron Jones. I don't expect much from Cam Akers and Aaron Jones tonight. As we turn to rookie draft season, expect the Vikings to get mocked running backs all through the draft process. That may be something as a weakness that shows up tonight in the playoffs. Justin Jefferson, minus 115 to score a touchdown tonight. Jefferson was the wide receiver 2, and it seems so quiet compared to his former LSU teammate, Jamar Chase. 18.7 fantasy points per game was ranked 3rd for Justin Jefferson. Jefferson, explosive rating, number 2 with a score of 129.8. So it makes sense. You got Darnold and Jefferson in the top 5 for the explosive rating metric at their positions. Jefferson, 4th in targets with 153 this year, 4th in receptions, eclipsing the 100 reception mark with 103, 2nd in receiving yards with 1533, and double digits there for 10 touchdowns. It's been a streaky year on touchdowns, so pretty cool to see Jefferson get 10. In a playoff game with everything on the line, expect a double-digit target game for Jefferson. Now, Jordan Addison, the perfect wide receiver 2, wide receiver 21 on the season, 10 touchdowns to match Justin Jefferson for 5th overall in wide receivers, 99 targets, 63 catches. That's good, respectively, both for 36 overall. Darnold will often look for Addison deep and in the red zone. Addison is 11th in deep targets with 23, and his 18 red zone targets ranked 10th. So the boom games come when Darnold and Addison connect. Sometimes it's good enough to outpace Justin Jefferson on a given week. Jordan Addison could easily be the number 1 wideout on many other teams. But hey, it's Justin Jefferson. TJ Hawkinson plus 220 to score a touchdown tonight. He isn't being hyper targeted, but he gets red zone looks. Hawkinson had 2 tight end 5 finishes this season. Look for Hawkinson to rise back up with J.J. McCarthy next year. That's what I'm going to call. I expect it to be J.J. McCarthy's show. Short of, Darnold has to bring the Vikings to the Super Bowl. Get to the Super Bowl at least, and I think there could be a conversation had. But the future, without a doubt, is J.J. McCarthy. Jalen Naylor is a good third option who can score a what-the-heck touchdown in a given game. From a historical perspective, we talked about the Bills earlier. Vikings fans always expect the worst. I'd argue that their pain with the Bills is near the same. However, the heartbreak is more spread out. It's tough to top 4 straight Super Bowl losses by the Bills. But Dan Campbell, my takeaway, said to Kevin O'Connell, they would see the Vikings in 2 weeks. I'm going to lean with Dan Campbell and the Vikings bouncing back for victory in Arizona tonight. Now, Mike, let's fire off Chef's Table.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Rams-Vikings, you mentioned, it's an exciting matchup, but, there's a disappointing twist. You mentioned it. The game is being played in Arizona due to the devastating wildfires in California. So, like you mentioned, prayers up, everybody there. Well, this removes the Rams from their usual home field advantage. They still have plenty of talent to rely on. Puka Nacua, one of the most impressive rookie seasons last year, has been a revelation for the Rams. His ability to take over games and his speed and agility makes him the prime target, and he showed that this year. He emerged past Cooper Kupp as the number 1 target in that offense, and it's just lighting up here. I've got nothing but great things to say about Puka. He was my stock up last week on the Dynasty Pulse. If you all tuned into that, I have him as a top 5 Dynasty wide receiver, and I will defend that all the way to the bank with y'all. So here we go. Puka Nacua, what a season. He's going to be a top one of my targets next year. It's going to be hard for the Vikings to contain the fast, dynamic wideouts that the Rams have. Matthew Stafford, his performance has been a little inconsistent recently. He remains an experienced quarterback capable of lighting up the scoreboard when the game is on the line, especially in the playoffs. Cooper Kupp, although he's had a quieter season, especially down the stretch, he still carries that postseason pedigree and should be ready for a breakout performance against a Vikings defense that ranks near the bottom in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. Running back Kyron Williams is another key player for the Rams, and with the workload expected to shift more towards him in this matchup, his potential to dominate is pretty good. So when looking at the numbers, Nakua's 1,250 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns his rookie season. Scream potential for a monster game, particularly given his yards per route run elite, which ranks among the top 5 in the league. Stafford's performance against the Vikings earlier this season, where he threw 279 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a 30-20 win, bodes well for his potential. Even though he's had a few rough outings lately, a favorable matchup against the Vikings defense allows the 5th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. So I'm expecting that Stafford could be a deep play in this one in DFS. Looking in deeper into the stats, McVay's offense continues to rely on big plays. Nakua has been a favorite target of Stafford, 17.4 yards per catch average. This could prove very valuable against a Vikings secondary that struggles to contain speedy wide receivers. For Stafford, his QBR against playoff caliber teams is solid, even in recent downturn performance. So I'm expecting a back and forth game. So the Rams may have the luxury at playing at, a home game, but it's not really home for them, which is probably what they needed to get them over the edge. But Puka is poised for a breakout performance, so I'm looking for a huge game from him. And we'll see what happens on this neutral site. Hopefully some noise is made, and this game is providing some fireworks. Who do you got in this one?
Well, I'm going to go with, as Dan Campbell said, I'll see you in 2 weeks, to the Minnesota Vikings. And the Vikings really, you can make the argument for Matthew Stafford, having confidence, Sean McVay, the experience is there. But I just lean on the fact of law of large numbers. The Vikings got to jam something through home. I also think, too, for some drama, Sam Darnold lighting things up would at least push all the talking heads about, what are you going to do with J.J. McCarthy next year? I feel like that answer is airtight, but it would be fun to see the stock rise for Sam Darnold. I want to see him get the bag. And hey, he can take a dump on some other team, but hey, why not go and get the bag? He's this close. It's been years of seeing ghosts and all that. And for the Minnesota Vikings franchise, they've really been a long-suffering franchise. So I am all about it. My cousin Mike grew up with diehard Vikings fan, so love him to death, and I hope his Vikings can get a win. But it's my Uncle Jerry who, he's number one. I want the Bills to win for him because he's in his 80s. My cousin Mike is 2 years younger than me. He's got a whole life ahead of him. How about you, Mike?
Well, I unfortunately for me, I live so close to the Viking faithful here up in Canada in Winnipeg. So I see Vikings purple all over the place here. And I've been tuned into the network. I've been tuned into their fan base for a lot of years, and I go down to Minnesota a lot to go see Viking games. And love the fan base. I'm just not expecting this to happen. I just saw Sam Darnold see Ducks last week in a game that he needed to perform in, and I just think that the Rams are a season, they have new faces, but they have that core. They got McVay, they got Stafford, they've got Cup. These guys have won Super Bowls, and that's what the playoffs is all about. And when you go down to the line, I'm going to pick the team that has that playoff experience, the team that's been to the show. And you know what? In some of my playoff brackets, I actually have the Rams coming out of the NFC as kind of a shot in the dark type pick because of where they came from and the optimism that they have moving forward. McVay's taken that team and he made a rebuilding team win the division, and now are hosting a home field game in a neutral territory, unfortunately, but can't count them out. And I'm going to go with the playoff experience. Although my heart wants the Vikings to win, my betting wants the Rams. So I'm going to go with that.
Well, hey, and that speaks to, if you have conviction, you're making the bet, you're making the click on the players. So that does speak, and it's not just that you're biased for your bets. You're also taking stake, putting your money where your mouth is. So there is a subtle giveaway on that psychologically to who you actually do think is going to win when you do confidently click. Because when you do click those players, there's a level of, I feel good or bad. And if you still feel good about it, that's indicative of really what you're predicting. So very good insight there, Mike. We'll be here next week. We'll be covering those divisional games. These first 2 rounds of the playoffs are always the most fun because you have the most games going on. And of course, it goes down to 4, then of course down to the Super Bowl, and then it's all the rookie fever. We are going to go back into our combat zone and our recaps next Monday. So we will see you next week.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.